My name is Joel Seto, and today you are talking to the team at DataWORKS, the home of explicit direct instruction. Specifically, we'll be talking about our designated, look at my hands, designated, that protected time of ELD. And joining me is, of course, the co-author of Explicit Direct Instruction, Dr. Sylvia Barra. Sylvia, go ahead, wave to the camera, wave to the folks at home. And without further ado, allow me to present to you our designated and with integrated support ELD program. We call it Launch Literacy. Here is an example of the portal, Launch Literacy and Linked Literacy. Launch Literacy and Linked Literacy. Launch Literacy is learning to read. We're turning the wiggly lines, right, into sounds. And we have options for everything from a newcomer to long-term English learner who is still trying to figure out diphthongs and things like that. And I'll show you some examples of that. Here we have our, look at my mouse right here. We have our linked literacy. This is our protected time again. This is our designated time. And this is learning, this is reading to learn, reading to learn. And then just for fun, we also have our edusary. And our edusary is where we show our fantastic components that will support integrated and will support acquisition of new language. I'll show you some options for that. All of these three things your teachers will be really excited about. I really have a good feeling about this today. So right off the bat, I'm going to click on Launch Literacy. Launch Literacy is a paced out program. Before I do anything else, I'm going to hit my placement guide. I'm going to hit my placement guide. So look at this. And I also have placement guide by LPAC level, What we have here is my placement level. And I'm going by Lexi level, their literacy level. If I look closely here, our learning to read program, level A, B, and C, that's essentially it's LPAC 1, borderline to 2, right? We're moving up, is what we have there. That's learning to read. And that's what we call our launch literacy. Our link to literacy program here, reading to learn, you'll see that the literacy level goes up. Now, Dr. Sylvia, you're on the horn with me here.
Yes, if we have a high school, if you have newcomers, usually teachers have to start down here in level A because the students do not know the sounds of English. And according to the ELD standards, we have to address them. So we address them in level A, B, and C. So even high school students, and we work with many high schools, they go to level A, B, and C. Now, if your students already know how to read, they can probably start with level C, D, E, and F. But we still do not have any high school that is really at the F level because most of the EL learners are not reading at the 8th to 10th grade level. And I do not know whether your ELD have that reading ability. Usually, most of our work is done with level D and C at the high school level.
Okay, so this is our placement guide. One of the things that we talk about our teachers, when we work with our teachers, one of the things that are most challenging to them, and I think you're all going to agree, is sometimes in a single class, we'll have multiple LPAC levels. And that's really tough. That's really tough for everyone. So one of the things that we try to do is we try to just grab their literacy scores, their direct need, don't look at my hair, direct need, and then we try to find the placement of them. Teachers, let's be prepared. This is going to be challenging, and I admit this right off the bat. Let's be prepared to move them up or down on whether they go to B or C or B to A. Let's be prepared to move them. And then we're going to have quizzes and assessments that will be able to support that. Okay, let's keep moving on. Launch literacy, we're learning to read. I'm going to show you my scope and sequence. What I have here for you, I have my standard and I give you my teachable learning objectives. And not only that, look what I've done. I've cross-referenced the ELD standards. Gets even better. I will actually be able to show you at what quarter we'll be able to address those things. Sylvia, is there anything you would like to address in regards to launch literacy and how we are able to hit the California state standards?
Yes, well, we actually started out with the ELD standards because that's one of the things we really wanted to make sure we had enough language and also the acquisition of all the grammar and the vocabulary. So if you take a look at our ELD standards and look at the one for 9th and 10th grade, if you notice, we took the standards, these are the ELD standards, and then we created learning objectives. And then we went ahead and we wrote lessons for all those learning objectives. And that is the reason we know we are really in alignment to the ELD standards. And then we took the documents from the state that they were doing the cross-reference with the ELA standards, and we went ahead and did the correlation. It's really looking at the ELD standards because those are the ones that are going to get the students to learn English. Another thing that was very important in your rubric was developing the academic vocabulary. So to go on this document where we had the academic vocabulary, so we took all the academic vocabulary from the standards, and because we do not change the standards, we just create learning objectives, we were able to know what were the different academic vocabulary words. And then we teach those in the context of the lessons. So according to the 9th and 10th grade ELD standards, the students should be pretty much have a working knowledge of all these academic vocabulary words. And we made those part of the learning objectives.
That's right. Very good, Sylvia. Thank you so much for that. Okay. So next, everyone, I'm going to move on and I'm going to click on our scope and sequence. One of the best things that we have is that we have the privilege of putting together a paced out program. Look at this is level A, this is newcomer, this is our paced out program. One of the things that we've discovered is that teachers will plan fantastic lessons, and 2 days later, they'll be like, hey, does everyone remember what we did last week? And all the students are like, nope. So since we have a paced out program, we absolutely attack the curve of forgetting, right? Curve of forgetting, that's where the Cornell note stuff comes from, right? The thing where you'll never have to study a day in your life if you read your notes 1 day after, 1 week after, 2 weeks after, and 30 days after. With our paced out program, we acknowledge that fight and we're able to grab that and address it immediately. Now, Sylvia, can you tell us what that looks like when we hit the accelerator, when we try to move a little bit faster?
Okay, and another thing too is that the students, in order to accelerate them like this, they have to be literate in their primary language.
Yeah.
So the high school teachers do not go through every single week. They go directly to week number 5 and to week number 9. So if they do that, they can actually do each grade level or each level in practically a couple of months. So they can go really, really fast. But if the students do not know any of their primary language or they're not literate, not that they do not know it, but they're not literate, then it will be more difficult because now you're having to teach them all the sounds and all the letters. And
that's right.
We have never had any problems with the students who come from Latin countries for the teachers to accelerate the students. The only time the teachers have not been able to do it is when we work with a lot of the students who come from Korea or come from
that's right.
Languages that are really not Latin based.
I'm going to go into level A. Once again, we're addressing newcomers. Realistically, we're going to spend most of our time as high schoolers. We're going to spend most of our time at D's, but I want to make sure that we address the newcomer population. So allow me to hit level E. And so even though we have enough resources to support 2.5 hours, I'm going to click on this right here. This is 30 to 45 minutes of that beautiful protected time instruction. We have provided you 2 strands. Look at my fingers. We provided you 2 strands here. We have our reading foundation and our reading comprehension. So reading foundation is we're turning the wiggly lines into sounds. This is, we really got to get the language down. But teachers, as I was saying, reading comprehension. When we have our long-term English learners, our multi-generational English learners, and what we've done is we have our reading comprehension. This is that listening and speaking and that big idea component that needs to be addressed. So once again, reading foundation and reading comprehension. Reading foundation is that strand that talks about wiggly lines into letters and sounds, and reading comprehension is that big idea. We have the program paced out. Today's day one. Maybe I'm running out of time, so maybe I'm going to skip opening. I'm going to go listening and words to know. Let me show you when we start the program here, and this is really neat. Okay, I'm going to start with day 6. Phonemic awareness and phonics. I'm going to click on those two, right? Day in the life of a teacher. Look at my photos. You will find throughout this program, there's nothing, I don't know how to say it, like kiddish. There's nothing like that will offend a big giant high school student, right? They will be like, okay, I get it. I have to learn the language, but I don't want to be insulted with clowns and puppy dogs and stuff, right? This is a fantastic photo. I'm not insulting anybody. So I kind of want to point that out to you. Now, here, one of the components of EL is pre-reading or reducing the linguistic demand of the lesson. Just like your ELD teachers, your ELD students have to do double duty. Not only do they have to learn the language, but they have to learn the content. In this specific case, they're learning the language. So students, maybe you like to work with your teacher teams. Maybe they already really like to use engagement. Students, look up here and track with me. Look at my Disney fingers. I'm going to point. Say it with me. Look at this word before I begin. Look at this word, practice. Look at this, teachers, right here. To do something over and over again. I'm just providing a framework. I'm just giving you some ideas here, right, guys? So here's practice. Students, before we begin, look at this word right here, practice. I'm going to say it and read with me. Practice. Now you say it with me. Practice. One more time. Maybe you like to do random selection. Whatever you like to do, you do. Let's go. Let's all share. Let's all say it together. Maybe it's only a class of 12. Let's all do it. You know, what does it mean again? We're going to do something over and over again. I powered up with doing a hand gesture, whatever you want to do. We will practice the T sound. Okay. I'm going to move on really quick light here because I have some teacher instructions here, but I'm going to go here. If I clicked on this here, it would make the T sound for me. The T sound for me, right? Gets even better. The fact is, a lot of your high school teachers who will be supporting EL have been out of school a long time, and maybe they weren't ready to do EL. Maybe they're not designed to do EL. Maybe they didn't sign up for EL, but this is what they got to do. Okay, so what I've done places of articulation for you. I even have a places of articulation book in this program. And I wish I would have shaved more or trimmed this thing right here. But one of the most embarrassing things about EL, for me anyway, is sometimes, especially over Zoom, you have to get up to the camera. And don't worry, I'm not going to do that to you today. But one of the things we have is, where are we going to place our tongue? And I have to tell you a truthful story here. Up until a few months ago, I was literally doing pa versus pa. And then, of course, we have our negative examples. All right. Now, teachers, I'm going to move on from here because this is this early stuff. This is the sort of the beginning. This is teaching language. We're at high school, and we know for a fact that we got to catch them up. We got to move quickly. So now let me clear my screen a little bit so I have a little bit more RAM to do things. And I'm going to click on Link to Literacy. Link to Literacy is probably where we're going to spend most of our time at. As I click on Link to Literacy, Sylvia, is there any last thoughts or big aha moments that you have from launch to literacy, from learning to read, that you would like to share with the team now? Before we take questions.
All it is that it is a very comprehensive program that has all the components of really looking at the sounds. So we have the phonemic awareness, we have the phonics, we have the vocabulary development, we have the reading fluency and the reading comprehension. Plus we have added, of course, the grammar, because grammar is very, very important. And many schools tell us they don't want to teach grammar. But if you take a look at the ELD standards, they really want you to teach the students not grammar as a mechanical process, but grammar as a means of communicating. And that's the way we write our lessons.
Sylvia, I'm looking at level D, and right off the bat, I see that we start with informative text. Why is it with ELD we're doing informative?
Well, if you really take a look at the ELD standards are really not to get the kids ready just for ELA. It's to really to get the students to be ready for any disciplines. And if you really look at them, they really favor expository reading. And with expository, we can use a variety of disciplines. We can use science, we can use history, we can use lots of different ways of getting the students to practice different language patterns.
That's right, Sylvia. Thank you so much. All right. Now, Sylvia, on my screen right now, I have quarter one of level D. Can you describe this pattern to us?
If you take a look at the first column here, it's really doing an extensive work on verb tenses. And the reason is because according to the ELD standards, we really have to go over all these simple ones and then the irregular ones, and then we go all the way to present progressive and quite a few of them.
That's right.
In the middle, we address vocabulary development, but not in the context of one word. We want the students to know how to figure out the meaning by looking at context clues, the meaning by looking at compound sentence, the meaning by looking at multiple meaning words, prefixes, suffixes. So it's important to have lessons that are really not just giving the students a list of vocabulary words, but to teach them the strategies that they need. So when they come across a word that they do not know, they will have an extensive way of looking at it and hopefully try to determine the meaning. And then of course, on the last column, we have the reading comprehension. And then we have, of course, at the end, they're going to be doing quite a bit of writing. But all our lessons have listening, speaking, reading, and writing.
That's right, Sylvia. And we'll take a look at one of those.
The lesson that you see is the complete lesson of how to write a descriptive essay.
That's right. Remember how I talked to everyone about that curve of forgetting? Guess what we're doing? We're doing periodic review. We have independent practice, and then of course flashcards and our quizzes and assessments. Our quizzes and assessments, yes, will indeed work with your Google Classroom or Canvas. That's a link you're able to send directly to your students, and we can take a look at that if you want. Well, one of the things that we provide to your teachers as an additional resource is our flashcards. Look at this here. Is it a guy who delivered my mail, or was it a guy delivered in my mail? Don't answer that question. And I go here, and look at that. We have some instructions here if they want to follow it. All right, students, be prepared to answer. Maybe they're in the classroom and they're going to be doing whiteboards practice. Maybe you're doing remote link teaching and they're going to do some whiteboard or getting ready to chat and hit the enter symbol. Whatever you want to do. Once again, this is just an additional resource that I'm really happy with. It's a lot of fun. I go here to our lessons. I'm going to hit teach full screen. Ladies and gentlemen, look at this right now on a Zoom call with you. This is what your students are seeing, and this is the power of it. One of the things that we kind of forget to do is do some pre-read and pre-definitions. I know for a fact if I go out to an EL classroom and I'm doing some old-fashioned popcorn teaching, I'm going to say, who knows what this word is, right? First answer is going to be determine. Determine. So what we've done is we kind of flagged out some words here. The second thing that we've acknowledged is that when we're supporting our EL students, we have kind of a bad habit sometimes of, instead of writing determine, I'm going to use the word figure out automatically. I'm going to forget the academic language. Because I'm going to try to support, I'm going to try to support them, right? However, one of the things that we approach right now and immediately is the academic language. And we've decided that we're going to take a stand in keeping with those ELD standards that Sylvia keeps speaking about, but we're going to lift them up. And how are we going to lift them up? Students, look at here. Students, look at my screen here. Look at this word here. I'm going to say this word first. Can you track with me? Can you show me? Determine. One more time, everyone. Determine. And the reason why it's so important, you're all going to agree with me, is because we know for a fact they're not practicing this new academic language in the playground. Our lessons are designed with the 7 components of a well-written lesson. They're designed around the engine of explicit direct instruction. Now, Sylvia, before I go on to activate prior knowledge, I would like you to share 1 or 2 thoughts on the methodology of EDI, explicit direct instruction, and maybe share 1 or 2 ideas on this page, please.
Yeah, we have quite a few posters, because all you're seeing right now is the written lesson. Mm-hmm. But we also have lots of ways of teaching these lessons, because these lessons are already pre-done for you. But we still have to think how we're going to teach them. So as Joel was saying, we can predict pretty much which are the words that the students are going to misread, just because we know the different languages that they speak. So we have quite a few posters. This is how to keep the students engaged, but do you want to show them the poster on vocabulary development? So if you take a look at vocabulary development, and I'm looking at determine, am I going to do multiple meaning? Am I going to use synonyms? And am I going to define the new words? These are all the strategies that you as a teacher will have in order to determine or to decide how is it that I'm going to teach that word. So if I were teaching determine, I will probably say determine students mean to figure out. But then you have to give them examples. When your teacher is trying to determine your grade, your teacher is trying to figure out your grade. So then you talk to your partner and tell your partner, what is the meaning of determine? Or give me a sentence with determine. So the students are going to have to really think about the meaning of this vocabulary word in the context of the lesson. And it's very important that you do it in the context of the lesson, because many of these words are going to be multiple meaning. I've chosen to teach it with just a definition, but many times we're going to have to teach it as a multiple meaning, many times as a word parts. It depending upon the nature of what we're trying to convey to them.
That's right, Sylvia. Thank you so much. Let's move on. This is activate prior knowledge. Students, look at the picture. Where are they? Everyone be prepared to answer. You do your random selection. Here, there's no script here. Here's just an idea of what we're going to go here with. This is just an idea. You can paraphrase it if you want to read it. Fantastic. If you don't, that's okay. And of course, they're in a computer lab, and students will now use context clues to determine the meaning of words. Oh my gosh, look at this here. And one of the fantastic things about this, everyone, is if you want to, you don't have to, if you want to, I have hand-writable PDFs that will work with either Google Classroom or Canvas that you'll be able to push out to the students. When it's time for independent practice and PR 1, 2, and 3, we also have handouts for that as well. Once again, writable PDFs that you'll be able to share in Canvas. We actually have a couple of videos that I have made and narrated that will show you how to add a Canvas document or a Google Doc to Canvas that you're able to push out to your students. Students, look up here. Let's track with me. Look at this. Context clues can be nearby words or pictures that help determine the meaning of words. Let's go read it with me. Context clues can be nearby words or pictures that help determine the meaning of words. Okay, that's cool. They've read it with you. But check this out, everyone. Look at my hand. Look at what I'm doing now. Now, students, don't do this at home because I don't want to get emails from your parents, but watch me. And of course, this is the moment I take a time out here, guys. Maybe I'm going to do some metacognition. Hey, students, I'm going to show you something that's so powerful, that you will remember this forever. Look at this right here. Students?
Joel, did we have 45 minutes or more than that?
Oh, are we running short on time?
Yes.
Joel
and Sylvia, we're available. If you guys are available to continue, please don't rush. We have plenty of time this evening.
Okay, because I wanted to also
Yes,
address
please.
the rubric, because there's quite a few
Okay.
things about the rubric that I wanted to address.
All right, let me finish. We gave an example. We gave our definition. We're looking great, but look at here. This is the real power and meat and potatoes of this. We have a pre-written checking for understanding question with a sentence frame. And look at that. And look what the sentence frame has. The sentence frame has the academic language that we're getting across. Don't get me wrong. The second you ask any of your students for a response, they're going to say B, right? And then we're going to have to sort of grab that from them. We're going to have to be like, okay, B is the correct answer. Great. But can you say it? The phrase B is the context clue because, right? So we're going to have different ways of grabbing that practice of the new academic language. Now, Sylvia, before I finish here on this page and we move on to the rubric, because we have to address that. You're absolutely right. What other things can we that you can take from this screen right now and provide to the teachers here and to the teachers who are prepping on a Sunday?
Yeah, this one is only the concept development, but if you take a look at the next page, can we move on to the next page?
Absolutely, Sylvia.
Then we're using now words or pictures, but then this page here is skill development and guided practice. And much of the rubric, it talks about having everything being text-based. So if you notice, we use a lot of the context clues, and the students, they might know already what clever is, but really that's not the important part, even though we have selected these words to match that reading level that we're talking about. On this one, we're talking about the reading level of about 4th and 5th grade. What really is important is that they pinpoint the context clues that they're going to use to determine the meaning of the word. Another thing too is that we use a lot of the pronoun reference. If you take a look at number 2, we have the butterfly, and then we go to it. And it's extremely important for English learners to know that that is going to mean butterfly. But that, of course, remember, this is how the lessons are written, but we as teachers need to know how to teach these lessons. So when we're teaching this lesson, we will read this sentence with the students, and we will remind them without teaching them, oh my gosh, this is a pronoun, or, you know, the antecedent and all of that. All we say is, students, it really is going back to butterfly. So embedded in this lesson, you're also giving them all the strategies or the language functions that they're going to need to have in order to understand what they're reading. So that's the way we write these lessons. And another thing is that it has quite a few distractors. If you take a look at close, flap, or open, and many of the students will probably tell you that it's open. And we really are looking for flap, because if you notice, the distractor is open, but the sentence has flew away. So the students have to know that you cannot open because you cannot fly away.
Right, open, yeah,
A
literally.
bit of things in which you're actually doing a lot of that language that they need to really understand in order to be able to address some of these lack sometimes of understanding what English is actually trying to convey to you. And then can you go up to, our lessons actually go up to skill development guided practice, and we do a closure. Can you go to the closure?
Absolutely. I'm going to summary closure now. Or do you want to go to skill closure?
No, go to the skill closure.
Very good. I'll start at the first one.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just, can you do this skill? We just taught you how to do it. But if you take a look at the next page, now that's when they start writing quite a bit. But we don't actually have them write, because what we have found that if they write too early, all we get is the cattails are nice. They truly have to understand context clues in order for them to be able to write a sentence that contains context clues. So even if you don't know anything about the chipmunk, you're going to be able to tell by looking at their sentence that it is probably an animal that has a fuzzy tail and is going to do quite a few other things. So that is the closure. That means that I'm ready to close my lesson. So if you move on to this. So this one, we ask the students, and high school teachers usually have a little journal, and they have the students write down, what did you learn today about this specific learning objective? Because the students are going to write, I learned a lot. I learned about this. But we're asking them to please use the word bank. And now they're forced to go back and take a look at the academic and content vocabulary. So if you move on, that is now independent practice. And some teachers say, no, we don't want independent practice because the students will not do it at home. We want homework. So we call it independent practice. You might want to call it homework. It doesn't really matter to us. All that matters is that the students should be able to do this by themselves. And then, of course, on the periodic review, now we go into the listening part. And we have really borrowed a lot from the LPAC. So the students are listening carefully. And then we have an audio for them to listen. And all it is exposure.
1. We are surrounded by many plants. One example is ferns, which are flowerless. They are easy to recognize by the feather-like shape of their leaves.
So now the students are just listening, and now they're able to fill out this page. And if you want to continue. And now we go to the reading part. And if you notice, now we're going into science. We're talking about omnivores and carnivores and herbivores. And the students should be able to read the passage and fill that out. And again, they're going back to the context clues. And then on the next page, we go a little bit more. Can you tell me what this means? And then the very last one, of course, is periodic review number 3, which is again going back and writing sentences with context clues. So these are very comprehensive lessons. We always recommend to take that time to teach that initial lesson. We usually allocate 2 days to teach the initial lesson all the way to closure. So the students will be successful. Because what we found, and we have now seen 35,000 classrooms, we're asking the students to do work too soon. And we don't get really anything that is very valuable as far as language, because the students would really go back to, oh, the catfish is very nice.
Yes. Sylvia,
Yes.
The teachers are asking for a very specific questions. They want to see the high school lessons.
Okay. Are your kids reading at the 8th to 10th grade level, or do you think you will be doing the D level?
They're reading a little bit lower, Sylvia.
Okay. Usually our high schools, they go between D and E. And so let me cover some of the E lessons then.
Okay.
Can
And
you,
then
before you get going, can you kind of explain if there's two books, D and E, and we have it spread out through 4 years, what would that look like?
Well, usually what teachers do is, because we do a lot of testing, the students can go up to level E, or they can go up to level F. But it's just been difficult for us to get the students to level F because their reading level is still pretty low at the high school level.
So essentially level D, you're supposed to be in that book for 1 year, 1 semester.
It all depends. Usually teachers, they do not teach. That's the reason we divided up the quarters into this is expository, this is expository, this is literature, and this is persuasive. Many teachers, what they will do is they will teach 2 quarters. they will do one of the expository and the other one of the persuasive, so they can continue to bring up the kids to higher level of reading. But we tell the teachers you cannot just expedite this program if the students are not able to keep up with all the checking for understanding questions. Because if you notice in our lessons, we have quite a few checking for understanding questions. As you are teaching this lesson, you know how many students are able to answer your questions, how many are understanding the content, how many are understanding the language, and right away you will be able to tell. So some high schools, they can go very fast, or not high schools, some students can go very fast, and some students take a little longer.
And Sylvia, for level D, E, or F, one of the things that we've recommended is we understand that narrative and or persuasive will probably be hit by your ELA support teacher, your ELA teachers. So Sylvia is saying to your team, if we need to move them as quickly as possible, maybe we should hit informative text quarter 1 and 2.
That's pretty much all, but high schools are the ones who are going to ultimately make that last decision. Many English language arts teachers, they tell us no way, because this lesson is supposed to be getting the students ready for English language arts, for my class. But you have to remember that ELD is not to get the kids ready only for ELA. You have to get the kids ready for any discipline, science, history, health, PE, because English is not only ELA, it has all the different disciplines. But I do not know how the teachers feel about this. It's just what other high schools have shared with us that they're doing.
Now, Sylvia, here's a question from Ms. Pena in the chat there.
Yeah, sure. I'm sorry. My question is not really at level A or B. It's just any level, a year A or a year B, for any level, assuming, let's say it's a book level C, and my class has not made growth this year, and next year they still need to be in book C or curriculum C. And will I be covering the same materials the second year? The same lessons? Are we just repeating the same lessons the second year?
We only have one lesson or the same curriculum for level A, B, C. I mean, we have the same curriculum for level A, another curriculum for level B. But one of the things that I wanted to talk about is that according to your rubric, you're actually looking for the scope and sequence. So I wanted to show you how we would handle like the main idea throughout all the different levels. So many teachers, what they do is they take the different levels, and then they're selecting more of what they feel that the students are really not making any growth. I can usually tell you what the students are really going to have a very, very difficult time with. And that's going to be main ideas. That's going to be your cause and effect. That is going to be your sequential order. They don't have as much difficulty with, but then they will have difficulty with looking at persuasion as far as writing it. So Joel, can you go to Eduseri and select A, B, C, D, E, and F and type main in there? Just main.
That's a big train going by.
So you see all those are the lessons that we have for the different learning objectives. If you take a look at the very beginning, the students cannot really look at the main idea, because that's the sentence that is going to tell what all the other sentences are all about. So at that level, all they can do is they can identify the main topic, meaning what is this passage talking about? And that's all, I promise you, that's all they're going to be able to do. Because sometimes teachers take a look at level E or D, and we're going to open that up. The students will be able to tell you here is that the main topic is about cars. That's all they're going to be able to do. But if you notice, let's go, Joel, to level D. Okay, so for level D, we have two type of main ideas. We have, can you open up the main idea with diagrams?
That's level E for echo.
Now you have the academic vocabulary interpret. They're no longer just identifying. Now they're going to a higher level. Now they're going to have to interpret. And now they're having different passages, and they're going to have to really understand how all those sentences are put together. So what teachers are looking now carefully, some of the high school teachers, they're looking more at the sequence of the lessons. And your rubric is really big on that sequence and whether we have lessons that actually progress through all the different levels. So you will be able to see that it is. So if your kids have not been able to do well on level C, our recommendation will always be to go back. If the students are not doing well, it's because they cannot read some of the words. So going back to some of the same material is not going to make a lot of difference. But if you object to doing that, that you don't want to do that, you can always go to the next level. And but you still have to be checking for understanding. And if the students cannot follow the lesson, that means that the reading level is too high. But you see, this is all the progression for main idea. It gets all the point that instead of just identifying the main idea, now we have the implied main idea. So it gets to all the different levels.
Now, Sylvia, one of the questions that we had earlier today is on our reading passages. I noticed that our reading passages are very small, but there are a lot of different categories. I saw a science lesson earlier.
Yes.
Why do we have such small text? Can you explain that?
Well, that is that happy medium between the students have to be able to see uses of languages from different disciplines, or are they only exposed with one passage, which is very long, with the same content? Well, it's better to teach them lots of different passages so they get used to lots of different language construction, a lot of the coordinating conjunctions, a lot of the content words. So we do not use long passages. What we do is we use very short passages. We have very good distractors. And then we have a variety of topics that we would like to expose the students. So when they go to science or when they go to history, they know that still they have to find the main idea.
Now, Sylvia, I think we have one or two more questions here before we open up the floor. It seems like all of our exercises end with plan and write something.
Yes.
And it feels like we have a lot of things embedded as well. But with good ELD, I understand there's supposed to be certain elements, especially to the rubric, certain elements we're supposed to capture in the entire program. Can you talk about that?
Yes. All the lessons, if you notice, remember when we went through all the lesson, they have extensive listening, speaking, reading, and writing. However, this is a unit, and after the unit, the students will be able to plan and write. But this one is at the learning objective level. So on this one, we're not embedding listening, speaking, reading, and writing in the context of the lesson. We are now teaching the students how to plan and write. Can you open it? Okay, this is cause and effect. And now if you go to the next page, well, this is the activate prior knowledge. But now we're teaching the students, this is an exemplar. What would a cause and effect essay look like? Go to the next page.
Going to the next page in one moment as we do our checking for understanding questions.
Then we teach them how to gather information from text, because the standards, they want the students not to write from their own background knowledge, but they need them to read. So they're going to be reading. Then little by little, we're going to teach them how to write a cause and effect essay. Go to the next page. The explicit direct instruction, this is how it's written. These are all the attributes. You just learn from sources. Now we're going to start writing, and then we start writing. So to go back, every lesson has speaking, listening, reading, and writing, but this lesson is specific to teach students how to write a cause and effect essay. And if you notice, before we teach them this, we have taught them a lesson on reading comprehension, which is cause and effect. So we already taught them another lesson in which we were teaching them how to identify cause and effect when they read something.
Right. And then Sylvia, once again, this is all teacher driven, but I do know that we also have, when we finish level E and F, we also have oral presentations that we like to do.
And that's in quarter 4.
Right, because we build up to that. Absolutely, we build up to that.
And many teachers, they use it throughout all the quarters. That's plan and deliver an oral presentation. But because we truly believe that students need to be taught, if you want them to do something well, we go ahead and teach them how to do it. Many teachers, they pull out their lesson and they use this for all their presentations.
That's correct. To answer your question in regards to oral presentations, the answer is yes, but it's definitely the end of everything. It's definitely the cumulative activity that will take place. Our thing in-house that we always have discussions with each other is we just have to teach something first. And once again,
and if you notice, we're giving them all the attributes of a very good presentation, and but we have to teach it first.
Right. So that's a really good point. Now, Ms. Ortega is asking, are there videos, speaking activities, and listening activities? Now, I think we kind of addressed speaking activities and listening activities.
Yes. Remember, in every lesson, when we finish our independent practice, we have our listening activity.
Yeah, and that's going to be mostly in our informative side. Is that right?
Yeah.
And then last but not least, our EDUSERY is sort of like the potpourri of everything.
EDUSERY now goes into not ELD, but content lessons. So if I want a lesson in science, but this is no longer your ELD. This is a full ELD program. EDUSERY has quite a few lessons in different disciplines, but that is to be taught in your integrated ELD. So that will have lessons on chemical reactions, one-step equations, two-step equations. Those are the lessons that teachers usually tell us that they're very difficult to teach. So we always write lessons for that initial first teaching.
That's right. Thank you, Sylvia. Yeah, designated programs where we're talking about today. Thank you, Sylvia.
A question. If we were to buy this program, do we have access to all 3 parts, the Launch to Literacy, Link, and EDUSERY?
That's 100% correct. What we're asking for is only $250 per teacher per year. And it comes with Launch Literacy, which is designated protected program, learning to read. It comes with Link to Literacy, reading to learn, designated plan. And then EDUSERY, which supports our integrated.
And we are doing extensive now staff development, but we cannot go to the different sites, but we're doing it through webinars.
Oh, big train again.
We even teach your kids some of these lessons, and you get to watch us teach your real kids.
Yes, that's a really good point. One of the ways that we kind of convince everyone to work with us is lesson demonstrations, whether over Zoom. Obviously, we prefer to be in the classroom, but we can do it with your students. So
I went over your rubric, and I was checking off, and we came up pretty much with about 85% of alignment with your rubric.
Can I ask a question about how long it takes to teach each level? And then I saw that there's up to 36 weeks of lessons. Is that true for each level?
Yes, there's quite a few of them that you as a high school teacher, and if your students are really literate in their primary language, and if, too many ifs, but I have to give you all the ifs, and if they come from a Latin-derived language, you can really accelerate it. So we have teachers who've gone through the whole A in 2 months. And Then we have other teachers who said, no, we just cannot do it because our students, we have some schools near Chinatown, and they have a lot of Asian kids, and they have to go a little bit more slowly. So I cannot tell you because you're the one who knows your population.
Yeah.
Right. And then how about the upper levels?
The upper levels, if my students are doing really well on the testing, if you take a look at the ELD standards, they're pretty similar. The only thing that they change is the level of support that you're going to give the students. Then they change the level of the different words that you're going to use for the different transitions. At the beginning, you're just going to use very simple transitions, then you go into phrases. So if my students are doing very well on the transitions and the reading comprehension, I will immediately move that kid to the next level. So, but I do not know if you have your kids by reading levels or if you have them by grade level. How do you place your students?
We place them in ELD by ELD level. So
Oh, good, good.
1, level 2, level 3, level 4.
Yeah, and that's the nice thing that this program covers 6 different levels.
Here's my warning for everybody, though. Sylvia, I feel like after the first 2 to 3 weeks, we have to be prepared to move our students. Can you talk about why we say that as a warning to everybody?
It all depends how well they're testing. And with the understanding that, remember, this is a program that progresses. And you have to be really concerned about some of the spelling patterns because some teachers, they say, well, the kids already know all the sounds, the beginning sounds. Usually English learners, some of the problems are a lot of the spelling patterns, a lot of the silent E's, a lot of the long vowel sounds or short vowel sounds because we're not used to that. So, but you have to remember that the year 3 or level C is going to have all those the silent K's, the silent E's. So you cannot just move. You really have to make sure that the students do know all their sounds. And you can do it because we have testing, and you will know immediately how many sounds the students know.
Yeah, so our assessments, let's take a look at our assessments really quickly as we run through. I'm pulling up level B, for example. I'm going to quarter 1. Going to my 45-minute, just like I said, day in the life of a teacher. I'm going to reading foundation because it's a newcomer. And I'm going through my week. And once again, you can accelerate by just going the review weeks. And then we'll see that we have our quiz right here. So you can go 2 weeks without the first quiz, or if you're doing the acceleration method, which we're kind of telling people that might be the way to go, we're teaching just week 5. And then we have our assessment that day.
That covers all these sounds that we've covered so far.
That's exactly right. Now for level A, newcomers, level A, B, and C, our assessments have 2 different forms. We have a digital form and then we have a printout form. Here's an example of the printout form, but we do have this digitally. Of course, it goes over our questions. We have our rubric for our assessments. That's great. And then we have our instructions for it. Once again, we have this both in digital as well as print. Here's the issue though. Level A, B, and some of level C, since they're not able to read the instructions yet, right? Because they're learning to read still, you're gonna have to run the assessments with them. That's true of any program. Whereas level D, E, and F, the assessments are 100% digital. You're emailing it through them. You're emailing the link to them in Canvas and they'll get it within 10 seconds. But that's what we have right now for our assessments.
Are the assessments self-grading?
Yeah, so the digital assessments are self-grading, yes. And so let me show you what that looks like if you want to see it. So here's just all the assessments in one place because we like to just have resources for you very quickly. We have our assessments here, and then I'm gonna click on just a brand new new one. Once again, you're gonna have to help your student with this digital assessment. You type the name of the student here. This is a newcomer assessment. So here's my instructions that I've already pre-read. Are going to have the handout already. I am talking to them over Zoom or anything like that. And then I'm going to run through the assessment. If they're able to, in this case, I think we're just identifying. And then when they're done, they're going to hit submit all. And it'll show up in your email box as a go or no go. And once again, play around with it. Go dive in here. Take a look at everything we've talked about today. I put my email in chat. If you don't have access to it or if it's expiring for some reason, I'll make sure I take care of that right away. And if you hear a cat, that's my cat at the door. How do you access it? Just send me an email and I'll give you the access to it. But the day in the life of a teacher would simply be they have to log in one time. And as long as they log in at least once a week, the computer will always remember them. And if they log in multiple devices, nothing bad would happen. If they have it on their Chromebook for small groups, or they're using it on their projector or their Zoom or a Promethean board, it will look the same in every format. And we do provide lesson delivery workshops. Sylvia, in summary here, can you share with us, Sylvia, maybe like one or two final thoughts or aha moments from your experience as a lifetime EL student and teacher?
Okay, I just want you to look at this lesson. The lessons are pre-written, but we have not pre-written how you're going to teach them, because everything in our lessons is teachers making decisions as they teach. But they have to be taught with all the engagement possible. Otherwise, they will become lectures. And we have seen a lot of our lessons that just become lectures. So keep in mind that we can teach your kids in the classroom so you can see the level of interaction that we do.
Yes, thank you so much for presenting. We really appreciate it. And Joel, I'll send you an email right now. I'll CC everyone so that you have their addresses. But thank you so much. We appreciate your time.